Glad to know you're still with us. Nigeria's value-added tax system remains a pivotal yet contentious aspect of the country's fiscal framework, with intersecting legal, economic, and federal governance challenges. As a key revenue source, VAT has fueled debates on fiscal federalism, with southern states like Lagos and Rivers demanding greater control over locally generated funds. While the Supreme Court has affirmed federal authority over VAT, Rivers State secured a favorable judgment from the Federal High Court and now awaits a final decision from the Supreme Court, keeping the issue unresolved. The 2024 tax reform bills propose reducing tax burdens for 90% of workers, streamlining administration, and enhancing regional allocations. However, the Senate's December 2024 suspension reflects ongoing regional concerns. But how these concerns get towards achieving sustainable development and unity? Well, we'll find out right now. Dr. Femi Egbesola, President, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria, joins me for this. Thank you, Doctor, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and I also have right here with me in the studio, Bunmi Bailey, Head of Research at SBM Intelligence. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I think I have the women in the studio and the men joining virtually. All right, Doctor, I guess, the issue here is balancing the need for reform with addressing public concerns. But how genuine are these concerns really? Do you think these concerns are really genuine or they are just political?
Well, it's natural for every human being to want to have the good side of every bargain to their hand. And it's natural for some who are concerned about the new tax bill to show some form of resistance to the bill because it's not as favorable as they would have wanted it to be. So that's natural. At the same time, too, in Nigeria, you also know that most of our activities has political undertone. So it's also possible that we have some form of undertone behind all of this. You know, this is really going to impact negatively somehow on the northern states who are not really generating enough revenue to add to the VAT bucket. And it also means that they're going to share less. So for them, it is a big challenge. But for some of us, we see it as an opportunity for them to begin to look inward and see how they can develop their states better, look at how they can be more competitive, look at how they can attract investors to their states, so that they can also generate more revenue in the states that can help them to fulfill their financial obligations in the state. So it depends on how you look at it. It's different perspective for different people, but for me, particularly for us in the business sector, it's a good way to go. The new tax reform bill is a good way.
I guess, for business people, business owners, that's just the conversation. But then talking about the North, for me, if you ask me, looking at the 60-20-20 and then the simulation we saw, it doesn't look like the North is actually going to lose. Because if you look at that simulation, we're seeing a situation where some states are having to earn more as a result of the 60-20-20, which says wherever we have Nigerians consuming the products, the attribution will be done to that particular state. And it's no longer about the headquarters. So I think it's important to put that out while we're all trying to have this conversation. Now, you have been on the field speaking to many Nigerians. Talk to us. What's the feeling you're getting from, the field? Okay,
so over the past few weeks, we've had discussions around the bill from stakeholders, from tax consultants, from economics, from experts. We've not actually gauged the public to know their opinion. So what we actually did was we looked at people in the informal and the formal and informal sector. That's business owners, employees, and employers. So we surveyed about a small sample size across 8 states in Nigeria. Also across the 6 geopolitical zones. And we asked them questions around, okay, first of all, if they actually were aware of the bill, right, their perception around it, their view, and also the current tax system, how is it impacting their business? And if these bills are passed, how would it impact their business? And also the urgency in passing the bills. So we were interested to discover that they were actually aware, like Mr. Femi said, they actually saw it as a welcome development, in a way bringing respite to the businesses. So they knew the potential impact it would have on their for their own businesses. If you look at the tax system in Nigeria is actually very complex because of the multiple taxation that businesses pay. In 2021, we did a survey where we actually looked at the number of taxes that many businesses pay, I discovered that about 98% of businesses in the informal sector paid taxes on a daily basis. I mean, this is something that's actually meant to be doing on a monthly basis. I mean, look at it. Even some other people are even paying as much as maybe three to 4 taxes every day. And the people that were even impacted by this are those transporters, you know, those in the transport system, because they are mobile and they can really make money around that space. So, and then if you compare the period till now, I mean, inflation has actually eaten their pockets. I mean, inflation has actually increased the number from about maybe, let's say about 10,000. So they actually saw it as a welcome development. Okay, this would actually ease the burden of taxation for them. But they also pointed out something that I think they also highlighted was the aspect of the progressive increase in VAT. I mean, I think the bill suggests that the VAT rate is meant to increase from about, let's say, 7.5
to 10, then to 12.5,
yes,
and then to 15 by 2030.
Yes. So what they actually talked, the major concern was for them was that, that won't this actually increase the prices of their goods and services? So they actually wanted to find out a way on how the government can actually address that aspect for them. Because if they increase the prices of their goods and services, it's going to affect the demand for their products. And if they affect the demand for their products, the amount they remit to the government would actually decline. I mean, if you, for example, look at a picture of maybe to have an idea or data of the consumption pattern in Nigeria. I mean, if you look at the food, tobacco, and beverage subsector and the manufacturing, I mean, consumption in that sector has actually been slowing since Q4 last year. I mean, as at Q3, the sector slowed to about maybe 1.79% from about 2.2% in Q2. So you can actually see how inflation is actually affecting demand in that sector. So their own major issue is that they actually welcome the reform. They know the potential benefit it will have for their businesses, because multiple taxation is the reason why many small businesses have not been able to grow. They've not been able to expand, and they've not been able to, in a way, improve the unemployment conditions in Nigeria. So that's all we could find out. Like I said, the issues around the 7.5 rate increase has to be addressed.
But talking about VAT, some persons will say, well, we have a lot of tax-exempt stuff, and we also have, you know, zero-rated and all of those things. Doesn't that cover up for this increase we're seeing? And some other people will also argue and say that when you look at, you know, African peers or even outside Africa, you're going to say that Nigeria has one of the, you know, slowest, or let's say lowest rates. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, so what we have to pay attention to, I mean, inflation is about 24.6%. It came out yesterday. We have to know that
34.
Fine. Yeah, say 34.6. Thanks for correcting me. So we have to know that fine. Nigeria has the lowest VAT rate in sub-Saharan Africa. I mean, from our report, we did a chart. We looked at about 10 African countries. I mean, you would also notice that Nigeria inflation is still at double digits. I mean, look at its African peers, for example, South Africa and Kenya. I mean, South African VAT rate is about, like, 15%. Kenya is about 16%. But if you look at their inflation rate, both countries have witnessed a decline in inflation rate since the beginning of this year. I mean, South Africa's inflation rate is about, let's say, maybe 2.8%. And then Kenya's inflation rate is about 2.7% as at October. And then if you look at Ivory Coast also, VAT rate is about 80%, but their inflation number as at October is 2.6%. So you can see that those smaller economies are actually doing well. They are seeing a decline in inflation, so they can be able to cope with a VAT increase. And we also have to know that in terms of wealth, right, smaller economies are actually growing their wealth faster than Africa's biggest. Well, we are sliced to fourth biggest African.
Haven't you noticed we no longer call Nigeria Africa's largest economy?
Exactly.
We're not Africa's most populous
We're just popular. That's or maybe biggest
mighty falling
or something. Yeah, so that's what we have to pay attention to, right? I mean, we did a research recently where we actually looked at the wealth of these some of these African peers. I mean, we looked at maybe Benin, we looked at Benin, Togo, we looked at Cameroon, and we looked at Ivory Coast. So what we discovered was that in terms of, let's say, per capita income, that's the income of these countries, the incomes have actually doubled while Nigeria has shrunk. Let me give you an example.
In less than 30 seconds, because I still have doctor with me.
In less than, let me give you just data numbers so that you'll be able to understand it. So according to IMF, GDP per capita income, that's the income per head for Nigeria, was $877 per head. That's from about, let's say, over $3,000 per head in 2014. So in a period, 2014, so in a period of 10 years, you can see that plunge. So like I said, our inflation numbers, in a way, does not really support us to be able to cope with a VAT increase compared to other smaller economies that are doing well. Smaller economies are doing well in growing their wealth. But what is Africa? Like I said, fourth biggest Africa in
Africa's most populous nation.
Yes, Africa's most populous nation, doing to actually improve the wealth of our
its
nation.
people.
Yes,
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Dr. Egbesola, I believe you're looking beyond VAT. I'd like you to talk to us about other parts of the tax bills that many of you in the business world cannot wait to see implemented, and what you think they would mean for your businesses.
Well, to us, the new tax bill comes with a lot of goodies for particularly the nano and micro sector of the business ecosystem. Talking about the VAT, starting from the issue of the VAT that my colleague in the House talked about, we now have tax exemption for almost 100% of low-income or household consumptions. And that to us is a big deal. It helps us to curb some of the rising cost of some of these commodities that is being consumed by low-income earners. At the same time, too, for us in the business community, we now have a VAT exemption, and we are even withholding tax exemption for those who have their turnover from 50 million and below. So for micro businesses, for small businesses whose their turnover is from 50 million and below, we no longer have any reason to pay taxes. So we have zero tax payments this time, and that for us is a big deal. Again, too, for those who are doing exports in the business community, we now have zero VAT for all our export commodities, be it goods or services, and that for us is also a big deal for us. We also have the Ombudsman, where we can now put forward a tax dispute. Before now, there's nothing like that. Court has always been the last arbiter, and most times than not, where a lot of times we said in the court getting justice. But with this Ombudsman, we are now able to go and get justice if we feel challenged or cheated. And the beauty of it is that if we're able to establish our case and we have already paid the tax will be refunded back to us. And that to us is another big deal. We also come to the point where, as business owners, we can now begin to pay 1, 2, 3, 4 taxes. In fact, the new tax bill identified 6 as against the over 50 different taxes that we paid before, which many of them are multiple taxes. And again, we also have a single window where we can now pay almost all the taxes, the 6 taxes that are identified in a single window, and importantly, online. We can now do it online in the comfort of our house or in our offices or in our factories. We pay our taxes, and we're also able to now decipher the right kind of taxes to pay. Not that anybody, the state actors will just walk up to you and tell you have to pay this tax and not that tax. This is now going to be open and visible to everybody, and we can now know the exact numbers of taxes we have to pay, how much it is going to be, and where we need to pay it to. These are very, very good development for those of us in the business community. We have been advocating before now that we want the threshold to be moved even from 50 million to perhaps 100 million. So those who are having turnover of 100 million and below should be exempted. But now we get 50, it's a good step.
Exactly, from 25 to 50.
Yes, we should be able to move up to 100. Because if
oh, wow, 100. We'll see about that. We'll see about that, Doctor.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Femi Egbesola, President, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria. Thank you for your time and your thoughts on Business Edge today. Bunmi Bailey, thank you.